this video, in Evony the King's Return, we're going to be taking a look at troop buffs, how to get them, how they work, and so on. So, just to get started with 2 or 3 of the easiest methods before we go into a more in-depth one. In the top left, in your avatar, there'll be Monarch Gear. The top right is just going to be for helping you grow, as well as the bottom right, whereas the top left, and middle right, these ones will be directly for PvP and PvE, although they're going to be much more useful to you in PvP. In the bottom left as well, you do have the march speed to monsters, which will help you out in PvE, and the other 3 will mostly help you out in PvP, with the top one being march size, then march speed, and then troop load. Personally, I use march speed, but you can absolutely use march size in PvP. In the other 3, you'll have many different options. The first 4 being for a particular troop type, which you can click on them to find out that, or look on my other video on Monarch Gear. And the bottom one will always be for all troops, but the same level of this errors is 16% to all. But if I go for a siege fire staff only, it'd be a whole 26%, but for siege only. You can more or less ignore the other percentage, so the other amount below it, because it's quite low. And this copies over to the other 3. Again, I have a video on this if you would like to check that out for a little more information on how to get them. But that's going to be a good way to make sure you go in there and equip those. For anyone that is really new, just in case, in the settings, in the options here, you can turn off Monarch Gear so no one else can see what you're using, as well as your VIP level. So make sure you do those if you are new and you didn't already know that. For anyone else that's a little bit more intermediate or advanced, I just wanted to go through some research that's available in the Academy as well. First, starting with military is going to be a good thing if you are a new player, or even someone that hasn't maxed it out before using other skill trees. So this one, you can start out on the bottom ones, but maxing them out like me may not be the best idea if you don't have much research yet, as the higher levels tend to cost more for the exact same amount of percentage gain in your stats. So perhaps go up to level 8 and then move your way down this skill tree until eventually getting down to this defense one here, or armor, the attack one, and this HP one. Preferably, if you're looking at PvP, do this one for ranged troop attack, and make sure you train range to be able to make the best use of it. If you were looking to kill boss monsters, you can do horsemanship instead. You can do both at the same time, but obviously it's easier to max one out first. This particular one maxes out at 100%. After doing those, maybe siege. Ground probably last, because people don't tend to use it for quite a long time on newer servers, even ones that are like 4 months old. Most people are not using large ground marches, so just to max out the other ones first is going to be a good idea. For anyone that does not know yet, mounted beats ground, ground beats ranged, and ranged beats mounted, with siege being kind of in the middle of the road in terms of being susceptible to quite a few things, but they're not particularly weak against anything at the same time, as they have a lot of range as well over the other troop types, but they are going to die a lot unless you have a lot of troops in front of them, so be careful of that. Other buffs that are going to matter are march size, march speed, and other things related to that, so make sure you go through the researches, see what's available, and get those other things, because your stats and your buffs are not going to mean as much if you don't have the march size and the march power to really pack a punch with those stats. So make sure you're always going after those. Make sure you compare different researches and other such things that are going to cost a certain amount of gold and other items. Compare what you're getting with other similar researches and consider doing other ones, although do keep to attack first, then consider HP Lastly, getting defense up, as it tends to not be as worthwhile as HP. It's still good to have, but going for the other two, especially attack, is going to be the best option. Having a ton of HP or defense tends to not be a good idea if you can't kill anything in the first place by having a high attack stat, although this can be a little bit different. If you have a very large army and you have a fair bit of ground, you can maybe go into defense a little bit more on ground in particular. If you have any more questions about research in particular, you can look at my research videos, attack video, defense guide, and things like that to get more information on that. I will very quickly go through the defense one and one other one before I move on. So in this one, getting these other two ones up are going to be good. Again, as you get it up to 9 or 10, it's going to cost more than it's really worth, unless you have that gold spare to max them out. Going down here, getting the trap attacks and things up is good, but if you don't have very many traps, or you don't have a very high tier of trap, which would be tier 6 or 7 or above, it's not going to be as worthwhile. And in a lot of cases, big players play Battlefield a lot, which is an event I'll have a guide on in the future. When playing that event, your traps tend to die a lot, and so having these stats very high are not necessarily going to be the best thing for you. Just instead going after having those stats for actual troops, march size and other things is going to be better. Getting your medical power up so you can have more troops in the hospital rather than permanently dying is going to be good, as well as getting your cost of healing troops down and your healing speed down to save on resources and speed ups. And again, you've got these other stats down here that you can get up for defending in particular. So remember, some stats in other tabs like military and other ones may only be for attacking only, so make sure you look out for that terminology. You have trap quality that's going to get your trap triggering chance up, which is obviously going to mean you get more use out of those traps. And you have other ones down here. Again, make sure you weigh up the time it takes to do it, the amount of research stones it's going to take to do, which you can get in the research factory where you can make these for gems and gold, and the gold cost, the time cost, everything. Lastly, I'll just quickly go through. You can get recovery up, that's going to help you in PvP, getting those troops back into your battle quickly. Military advance will be unlocked at a higher keep level, although same thing applies here, getting those researches up. In here you will actually find your first debuffs, so this one here reduces enemy ranged troop attack. While we're on debuffs, I wanted to mention, when having debuffs from your subordinate cities by having generals that say a similar thing like this, reduces enemy ranged troop attack, there are ones like that: Nero, Sixi, Andrew Jackson, Nevsky, Canute the Great, Constantine, many others. I think Margaret is one. All of these generals can be used in subordinate cities as long as they had ticked on to fight for your main city in a defense, or are ticked on when attacking another player. Those debuffs will count in your report, but remember, those debuffs, as well as these ones that are researched, will add up to a total amount. That total amount will only work as long as it is less than 50% of the total enemy stats. So if you had a 100% debuff to ranged troop attack, but the other player only had a 100% troop attack for ranged, your debuff will only work up to 50%. So that means instead of having a 100% debuff, meaning that that person has 0% troop attack for ranged, they'll still have 50%. This means you can never truly debuff someone to 0. They'll at least have half of their own stats. So remember that if you are attacking someone, or are trying to attack a low level player to check your stats on your battle report, that those debuffs may not show up. So obviously that's going to be a good way to get buffs in your research, in your Monarch gear, by adding those generals I mentioned and checking out my subordinate city guide to learn more about debuffs and how that works in subordinate cities. In addition, the more obvious thing is 3-dot icon here in your generals. Check out my best general guide and things like that. I have pretty much the best defense general here. I only got him a day ago. He's level 27, I've got 4 stars on him. How I've done that is by using the methods in my general leveling video. And I think there's one other video that may be in attacking a green NPC subordinate city over and over, losing maybe up to 5,000. Not just leveling him, but leveling more than one general at once. Up to 5,000 tier 11 ground troops, which tend to be better to use. I've been able to level up to 27 and a bunch of others to 22. That's going to be a good thing to get your stats up. Leveling him up, using the enhance icon in the bottom left to actually get that star level up, which can be done with gold, with medals that you get from attacking monsters and boss monsters. Then, in addition, you can buff those 2 stats that you've created by doing that, by using my cultivation video to cultivate. The numbers on the left cannot generally be exceeded by the numbers on the right, which obviously means that I could get the ones on the right up much higher once I get some more gems on hand to be able to do so, but those really add up to a lot of stats. As you see, as you scroll down at the bottom of the page here, you can see all of the stats I'm currently getting from the general level and cultivation and so on, all added together. These will add on to general gear and other things like specialties, research, Monarch Gear. Currently I have mostly King's Gear, but I've been really unlucky for some reason and could not get the boots so far, but it's not really what I'm looking to go for at the moment. When building these King's Gear, which you're going to get from boss 10s, 11s, beyond that you might get Dragon Gear or Archimedes Gear for higher and higher bosses. When you get these scrolls and you make these in a particular level forge, you can upgrade them star level with gold. That will get the basic attributes up. Also, you can refine these to have various different things. I will have a particular video for refining out at some point. I currently have one for gear in general, which does include refining, that you can check out. If you have any questions on this, research, anything else related to Evony, or in particular this video, leave it in the comments down below and I can get back to you on that particular question. But by getting these up, that's going to increase your stats. Also, remembering the weapon in the top left and in the bottom right, the ring will always be preferring to give you attack stats for any given troop type by locking in preferably ranged or siege stats on most attacking generals, as long as that pairs up with their default book, which it does for Joseph E. Johnson. You can go for percentages, don't go for raw number amounts. On ranged, on ground, even if you wanted on defense. Same goes for the bow. I haven't personally done that, and it may be a good idea to not do it yourself as well until you get Dragon Gear, if you can hold out, which I am. Also, the chest piece here, or the armor, and the boots will be for troop defense. The helmet and the pants will be for HP. So remember that there's 2 for each. Weapon, ring is attack, chest plate and the feet are defense. The helmet and the pants are HP. As well as that, in the top left, you can equip the Spiritual Beasts, which I have a video for. I don't currently have a video for dragons, but feel free to ask questions if you have them. You can apply these for a defense general. It's probably going to be best to go with siege if you really wanted to. Preferably, the Thunder Scorpion is going to be good, and if you have a dragon that you're not using on a PvP general that's used for attack, you can use those as well. The Celtic is okay to use on this general, or on general PvP, although there are better dragons if you unlock them through the wonder building, which I will do a video on now in the future. If you're not understanding what I mean by wonder and the dragons, you can mostly ignore it until you get to keep 26. Then you may want to look at that, because you need to use the pasture building or be quite a high ranking player in SVS to be king of your server and so on, to get the wonder to unlock some of these dragons. I have a video on Spiritual Beasts if you wanted to check that out. And as you see here, these are the buffs that you're going to get from the particular ones if you wanted to have a quick look at which ones do what. Obviously you can level them up, so make sure you check out that video if you need it. Now skill books, as you see at the bottom, this is a brand new general, I only just got him in the recent event, so I don't actually have level 4s on him right now, but I do have ranged troop attack, archer range, and siege range increase. So it's a 200 increase for level 4 on the siege. I think it goes up to about 100 on the ranged, but I don't have a level 4 book at the moment. You can mix and match with a siege attack or a ranged HP. Mostly I wouldn't really go out of that scope for this particular general, or most attacking generals that you're using with ranged that have ranged books that you can check out in my best generals video. But you can obviously go outside of that scope if you are using a general that's going to be for other uses or other troop types. Now other ones that can be used are temporary buffs, so city buffs under your keep. So if you have spares, you can absolutely use the troop attack, defense, and HP. You have a 10 or a 20%. You can choose to use these when you're just about to go in PvP, because as you see they only last 1 hour. For anyone that did not currently know, if you are in the battlefield event and right at the last minute you purchase what is quite an expensive buff, but 75% buff, you can actually then use that outside of battlefield against a player and against a boss monster to kill them, stacking all of your buffs together with that. But obviously a lot of people are going to be bubbled anyway, and you're not going to have very long on those buffs to use, but it is a method you can use if you so wish. Also, this King's Protection one can be gotten if you go to your shrine, you offer. In my case, if you have this green banner unlocked, so that's based on your shrine and keep level, I'm personally able to offer, as you see it says here, 20 times within 1 day, which will give me a 24-hour buff of 10% increase to ranged troop attack as you increase your shrine level. So this is level 30, 33, and finally the last one is 35. You actually keep 35 and shrine level 35, get a 20% boost to attack of ranged and siege and defense of mounted and ground. So that's an overall buff of 80%. One thing I missed out with the generals I wanted to quickly go back to. If you go to your general and the bottom right, if you have a general that's level 25 or above, which means you need a Monarch level 25 or above, you can use the first 3 specialties, upgrade these, upgrade your stats. As you go up to Genius, you'll get up to the total amount from me, which is at 2%. On that, this one's an 8 and a 4%. And when you unlock the Genius level on these 3, you can unlock the one on the right. This will cost gems. This can be increased. This one here can actually be gotten from attacking players and doing quite well in SVS. So these are like luck stones or something. I forgot the exact name for them. I will have a video on specialties in the future, but do feel free to ask questions about it if you need help. You can get rune stones from Battlefield and things like that, so do make sure you participate in those events and keep getting those gems so you can use these specialties to your advantage. Also, in your keep, there are duties which are mostly going to help you out on defense. There's various different ones to check out on here. I have a video for it. You can do the Archer Tower attack, which is going to be a defense based one. It's going to be better to have a defense general before you have an Archer Tower general, but you can use that. You can have a hospital capacity increase by adding a general to your hospital duty. Your warehouse will help you protect more resources and protect them from upkeep. Also, the embassy one will allow you to increase your stats when reinforcing another player, and there are other ones that are going to give you other buffs. That's something to check out too. Also, for those players that have been playing for quite a while, the art hall may be good if you use the egg cracking events and other things to collect artwork, as well as go ahead and collect generals over time as you complete the general halls by getting the 4 corresponding generals, or the exhibition halls which can be done by collecting enough of these artwork pieces to get 3 stars here. You will then be able to go to the art treasure icon, activate these, and as you activate them you'll get certain buffs, as you can see in this tab for yourself. Just to very quickly go through the pasture, these are where you can find your dragons and spiritual beasts. Also there's dragons available in the Wonder if you have unlocked that. So the first one is 300,000 gems when you're a keep level 26 and partial level 26. This will give you, as you click in this bottom right icon, marching range troop attack buffs, and also march size capacity eventually as you level it up. You can also feed it to level it up. You can refine it to give additional stats. I've not gone too hard into this, but you absolutely can. Fafnir is going to be good for mounted, I think it is. Layden is good, but he can only be gotten from like these all-stars people, and you have other dragons like Thebes available from the Wonder. Another key one in your alliance, under Alliance Science, you can do various different upgrades that are going to help your stats and everyone's stats. So this particular one we've got on right now is Ranged Troop Defense. You can do Healing Speed, Ground Troop Defense, and as many others as you click through here. For anyone that does not know, when you go to the Manage icon as a leader of the Alliance, Alliance Settings, Recommended Alliance Science, you can change this to pin to the top the research you would like everyone to be completing. So make sure you do that and encourage your Alliance members to do that to get everyone's stats up, which is going to be obviously a very good mutual benefit. As we saw with the duties earlier, you can have the Archer Tower. Leveling it up means that the Archer Tower duty is worth even more. Currently I have almost 20 million attack on it. The Archer Tower is not going to be anything particularly substantial, but it's always worthwhile to level this up to make sure you have a duty officer on, especially during Undead Invasion, just to give yourself that little extra boost. On that note, although it is not necessarily a direct thing to be using in PvP or a direct buff, you can, if you are a lower player and you're not looking at participating in the big leagues, you're not looking at always playing in Battlefield, you can build traps in your trap factory, which is going to be governed by your walls in terms of trap capacity and research. You can get those up, you can do the higher levels and add those in. Again, the biggest part is doing the research for them. If you don't have the research, it kind of makes them pointless. But if you are a big player, always attacking, being attacked, especially in Battlefield, those traps will go down quite often, and they might not be as useful to keep building again. So do keep that in mind. Although that's going to be good, although the research can be good to do, it may be a waste if you end up having them die all the time anyway. Again, I wanted to mention, if you want to test your stats to see your debuffs, to see your buffs, go ahead, attack some random low-level player. Make sure you use a big enough army. Make sure you're using the correct general and things like that. Also, make sure you add on temporary buffs. I wouldn't really recommend if you're just testing your buffs to actually use them, but make sure you add that on in your calculations at the end to what it would be against a real player when you actually use those. For anyone wondering exactly the best stats and how they work, stats are going to allow you to, in the case of attack, kill troops quicker in battle and rely less on your armor rating, which is your defense, and your HP. As your troops take hits to their HP, which can be affected by defense, they will then become wounded, potentially deserter or something else, depending on exactly where the battle takes place. And obviously, the higher the better, especially on attack, then HP, then defense. If you are a keep 20, you're probably going to want at least 150% stats on ranged at the least, potentially all troop types. That's at least with attack. Other things can be lower, but I do recommend trying to aim for higher as you get to keep 25. Trying to really push that 2 to 250 mark, if you can, is going to be good. As you are a stronger and stronger keep 25, maybe even a keep 26, definitely pushing those 300% stats for sure. Anything higher than 27, you're going to want to be at least 350 on those key stats, again, attack and HP, especially for range, but other troop types as well. Again, siege is going to be good as well if you check out my layering video. As you go to keep 30 and beyond, as a kind of weak keep 30, you're wanting a bare minimum of 400% stats, including research, including your general, even being buffed, preferably 500%. As you're getting up to that level, personally I am pushing over 500% on ranged. I'm a very weak keep 29 in a way that I have not really upgraded a lot of buildings past that level. I've only got the academy up to that level. I've not gone too hard in my generals at the moment. I'm becoming a little bit inactive, to be fair, and still I am pushing that 500% at that mark. So that should give you a good idea of what you're aiming for. If you have any questions on that, on debuffs, on research, on Monarch Gear, anything, let me know in the comments down below. Make sure you subscribe and click the notification bell next to that to get notified when new videos go live. I'm going to be having a Battlefield, an SVS one, as well as various other smaller ones coming out in the future, so make sure you check those out when they're released. Thank you for watching.